what's up, you guys? My name is Sephiroth, and welcome back to LEGO Arts. So last video, we wrapped up our current Ruby showcases by showcasing Salem. So now we are doing on a showcase that I've really been looking forward to ever since I finished the game, and that is LEGO Final Fantasy VII Remake. I've been very excited to do these minifigures, and these turned out very well. I'm really proud of how each of them came out. So as you can see, we have Cloud, Tifa, Barrett, Erik, and Sephiroth. All of which took quite a while to do figuring out of how to proceed through each of these characters, what sort of styles I could come up with, and through some trial and error, finally came to this conclusion. So I have to say that this showcase was probably one of my tougher ones. Like, it was almost as hard as doing the Ruby Volume 7. That showcase had a lot more detailing, but this one definitely had a lot of challenges for each of these characters. None of them were easy to do. It took some time to really figure out of how I wanted to proceed through each one, and once I finally came with an overall idea, this was the grand result, and I'm very proud to finally be showing you guys these. So, as you guys know the whole drill, we're going to take these minifigures one at a time, do review them, explain my process, why we about this route, and then go from there. So, without further ado, let's get the pedestal out and get the showcase on the road. Kicking our showcase off is, of course, the main protagonist of the game, Cloud. So this character was the first one to get done, and was a little bit of an interesting process to do. It reminded me a little bit of when I was making Link from Breath of the Wild, especially with the hair. The hair is kind of similar to how I did Link, mostly because it's like all sculpted and a bit spiky. This was actually the same method that I wanted to do for like Yuzora, but at the time the clay was low, and I didn't have enough to sculpt out like the general idea, so I had to push that idea off. But with Cloud, I definitely wanted to sculpt out his hair, because there's no minifigure hairpiece that is remotely close to like this. To sort of like Cloud's hairstyle. And actually finding the references for Cloud's hairstyle was a lot more difficult than I thought it would be. But once I managed to get a good idea of all the angles, like all the sides, I sculpted out as best I could, and this was the overall result. So I really like it of how it came out. His decal base is a pretty plain face, because he's got pretty much a neutral expression throughout the whole game, and with his eyes are actually a cool little detail that I did on Drawcast, and that is I sort of mixed two colors together. I mixed like a green and a blue and like a light blue. I mixed them together to give it sort of like that aquamarine kind of color he has, and managed to do it a few times to where like if I uploaded this to like DeviantArt, you could see like some green is still shown in the eyes. I don't think I have the decal anymore, but the green was still showing, and I really like it of how it came out. I did the similar thing when I did Oscar for Ruby Showcase. But anyways, back with this figure. The torso and the whole figure is completely hand-painted. I first did the base like dark blue color. I actually had to jump back and forth of whether or not this was blue or black, because some photos showed otherwise, but once I figured out a good color, I centered on dark blue, because I really think that really pops out for the outfit. You can kind of see like the brown detailing of like the straps leaning onto with the front under the torso, and then continuing on with the back. The shoulder pad, and the pad for like with the left arm. With the shoulder actually didn't fully come out intended. Like you can as you can tell in the game, on the game and like cosplay stuff, the shoulder pad is a lot more different. Unfortunately, that was sort of a side effect with this thing, because I wanted the shoulder to wrap around the full figure, but still have articulation in the arm. I did the same technique that I did with God of War with Norse Kratos. On sculpting out the shoulder pad for where it could still wrap all the way around the bot, all the way around the torso, but still have the arm have articulation. Sort of as like a cool detail. Plus, I think it would have looked a bit too weird. It would have looked weird if like one part of the shoulder was like sculpted, and then like adding in like clay onto the torso. So this way, it actually makes it look a lot more even. And the color that I used for this is brighter than it is in the game. I went with this metallic like blue marker that I found. That I thought it looked pretty cool, and decided to go ahead with that. Plus, if I had used like the dark blue and tried to make it metallic, I think it would have come out too gray and too like silverish, and it also would have like probably blended in too well with the outfit, and you couldn't see it at all. And also, so that's why I made a few cuts. I originally thought about taking like some small screws, and like merging them into the shoulder to like really add in that effect, but I couldn't find any screws that were small enough to where they could fit onto the shoulder pad. pad, so I had to scrap that idea. You can see with the rest of the gauntlet, like, I first sculpted out the clay, the base clay, then took some small bits of clay and carefully, like, attached them onto the hand. And, the hand, I just painted the whole thing silver and then added like, gunmetal color, and then added in, like, this black detailing down there. The feet, there is some articulation in the feet, like, you can see, like, I can move his legs, put him in different positions. His boots, which were originally just plain black, but then when I saw that there was, like some metal on there, I decided to go ahead and paint that on him. His right arm, not a whole lot of detailing, but you can see, like, the basic, like tan color. He's black glove, and then, like, his bracelet on his right hand. And then, of course, you can't have Cloud without the Buster Sword. The Buster Sword was an interesting build to do. As you can see, like, I did do some sanding, like, especially around, like, the blade edge. I actually had to refix it a few times because I actually sand off too much of it. And when I double checked of the sword design, I realized that, like, oh, there's actually more to the edge than just that. And then just, like, and then just having, like, the whole edge be silver, there is actually some of the metal, like, going all the way to the tip. So I resculpted that a little bit. It wasn't too difficult. So, I sanded the hilt of the weapon, and tried to replicate the same detailing on both sides. I always hate doing this because I don't know if the detailing is in the same measurements or not. But I did work with it as best I could, and like, the sword isn't flimsy, which I really like it. It's because that's the brick piece that I used. I didn't sand all of it off, but I sanded off enough to where it could be like the size of like a regular minifig sword, and then sculpted the whole blade around it. So when working with clay like this, it's best to have, like, a base inside the sword, so that way it's not too flimsy, and it would really feel all together. And then, like, with these little dots on here represent, like, the materia. So, like, the green materia is the magic, and then, like, the blue materia is sort of like the special ability that Cloud can have. So overall, I really like how this figure came out. Because he's got articulation. You can move, like, his legs, his arms, even his hands. He's got his iconic sword, and his facial expression matches up. The hair turned out pretty good. And overall, I really like of how Cloud turned out in minifigure format. So next up on our list is Tifa. So when doing this character, I will say was not quite as difficult, but did have a couple of challenges when doing this. So when doing her decal, I only did the white crop top and some of the black outlines. The straps that go from the front and then go onto the back, I actually hand painted. I originally thought about maybe of actually making them, like, 3-dimensional, but then I realized that it would, like, interfere with the hair design, and I would have to do a lot of sanding in order to make it all, like, blend in together. And I can't even remove the head anymore. So that's an unfortunate bit. So I have to, so this is the overall, like, design of it. And I'm not complaining too much about it, but I think it would have been kind of interesting to, like, try to sculpt out the straps. But overall with the design of it, it did come out okay. So I'm glad for that. I did add in, like, some of these silver parts of it to represent, like, the buckles that are on there. Her arms first were both, like, standard painted black. Like, I then went back into the detailing. So on the right, you can see, like, some of the detailing representing, like, her gauntlets. Of course, like, the little dots here representing her materia area, the green for the magic, and the yellow for, like, the extra special one. On the left arm, she's got, like, this metal guard piece here. This here was kind of odd to do. I might have misplaced of where this was supposed to go, but some of the photos that I saw of it were a little bit misleading. I finally decided that, like, it's more of on, like, the elbow, so maybe that's where I should put it. So I sculpted out like a 3-dimensional piece. First painted it silver, and then went back for, like, the crimson. Same thing around here. Like, I first did the crimson, and then did the silver outlining around here. I didn't incorporate all of it because, again, since the arm is small, I can't add in, like, the full detailing onto it. There are some sacrifices that one must make when it comes to this stuff, but it's still does have like the overall idea of it. I can still like move the arms if I wanted to, so I'm really glad for that. I really like it of how that came out. Did some light silver detailing on both of the hands, and also adding like her fingerless gloves. So I like how that came out. Her skirt was kind of interesting. It was kind of interesting to do on drawing out like the like the detailing on here. Like if you move the lights, you can see some of the additional detailing I did on here, and it continues on to the back. The hair, I actually really took like one of the like standard princess kind of hairs. In fact, I think I used the same hairpiece for Donna from Doctor Who, but I sanded it up a little bit. I was originally going to go with like sort of the like straight hair, and hair like hairpieces that were used for like that I used for like Amy from Doctor Who, or maybe looking into like Adventure Time, and the Marceline hairpiece from Adventure Time. The Marceline one was good, but the sides were a bit different, and the Amelia Pond hairpiece that I used, it wouldn't work actually, and I would actually had to do a lot more sanding than anticipated. So I settled down on using one of these extra hair pieces that I had that I sanded off like the braid on the back and smoothed it out to make the hair more straight, and then added on the small little like tie on the back, which was just a small bit of clay that I super glued on here, then painted it black, and then added in like the scrunchie for the back, and then for the front I sculpted out like the hair a little bit longer, making the hair a little bit longer and matching up with Tifa in the game, which was the same reason why I couldn't use the Marceline hair piece, because there was like more hair on towards this side, and it was like a little bit odd. So I really like how this came out as sort of like a little improvisation. And then with the decal, this was the same face decal that I used for my Kara minifig in The Detroit Become Human, when I redid that one, but I repainted the eyes to match up her red eyes, and a little bit of her mouth as well, and I think it turned out really well. It wasn't quite as complicated as I did with some of the later figures, but definitely did have a few challenges just on their own. I can do some articulation in the legs, but it's a little difficult, so not too concerned about that. But overall, aside from like some of the stuff that I was hoping to do but couldn't, I really like how Tifa came out, and this is a pretty cool interpretation for minifigure format. So next up on our list is Barrett. So this minifigure was probably one of the toughest minifigures I've ever done. Not just in the showcase, but overall as a whole. And I'm not entirely counting like Five Nights at Freddy's and Bendy and the Machine, because those characters, I had a straightforward idea of what I wanted to do for them. With Barrett, on the other hand, I kept jumping back and forth of how to make this character, because he was the toughest of all of them to figure out. So in my Let's Plays, I talked about how to do a Barrett minifigure, and one of the challenges was figuring out how to make him. I didn't want to use like a regular minifigure because that would have been too short, and I didn't want to use a big fig because he is tall and muscular, but he's not gigantic. So when thinking about it more and more, I settled on doing like a Toy Story Woody minifigure for the base, and the amount of detailing and work that I had to do in this was a long time. Like, there was a lot of work put into this, especially like the jacket and the minigun, and I'll explain into that as I go. So when looking at Barrett, as you can see, like, there's some articulation in the legs, not a whole lot, and that's sort of a downfall with this one. I couldn't remove the legs, so I couldn't do the sanding and reattaching them on, unfortunately. There is some not full articulation with the arm, like I can't fully bend it all the way back, and it's mostly because of the jacket, but there's some articulation there. While we're here, you can see like I did the black glove, my glove that continues on for this hand. I tried to paint on the tattoo as best they could, with the stuff, with the materials I was working with. This does kind of look weird, but it is for minifigure format. With this arm, on the other hand, this was the challenge. This is what made this minifigure hard. Because I knew when making Barrett in minifigure as Lego format, format, I had to include the minigun. Because, like, the minigun is, like, one of his, like, character identifiers. Like, you recognize the dude in the game, you see the gun, for an arm, and it's just like, yep, that's Barrett. That's Barrett. So the challenge was for starters, how to do the gun, and the other challenge was how to apply it onto the arm while still having some movement. You can, as you can see, I have managed to achieve of applying this gun onto this bit of the arm. I sanded off the arm first, and then took one of these brick pieces, the same kind of brick piece that I used for my War Machine minifigure, a figure that I modified a lot. Like, you can see, it's significantly shorter. You can kind of see, like, where the glue is, like, you can see of, like, where I had to slice off the bit. I sanded a few times, and then, like, on the sides, you can see, like, this bit, this bit is sanded off as well. I did that because again, I wanted this arm to be articulated. I then went back and filled it in with some clay, and then added in, like, some clay on the top, representing the scope, and then underneath, representing, like, the little ammo click, painted the whole thing base black, and then went back and did the detailing on the silver for the rest of the gun. And the gun, he's got the two materia over here, the green one representing the magic, and the red representing the summon materia. I'm pretty sure this is not where the materia slot is supposed to go, but since the rest of the team had their own materias, I decided to include in this one to represent, like, some of the gameplay mechanics. But the amount of times of when sculpting the gun was a huge pain. First off, of sanding off the arm enough to where, to matching up with the game, then modifying, this brick piece enough to where, like, it could fit on, but not be too long, because if this was the original design, it basically looked like a third leg, or, like, it looked ridiculous. So, modifications there as well. And then the biggest challenge was attaching it on here and applying movements to where he could still move it and match up with the character. And that's sort of the reason why this jacket turned out a bit weird. Like, you can see that the jacket, like, it is intact all the way around the body on the left side, but on the right, the arm kept ripping off. So I realized that, like, okay, if this is gonna work, we need to cut off the bottom, cut off the side entirely, and just have it for where, like, the side, like, it still match up. Like, it still represents, like, sort of like the torn sleeveless jacket Barrett has. So that's pretty good. I do wish that I did have on, like, the original base of it, but I worked on the gun first because I wanted to get that out of the way, and unfortunately, because of that, I couldn't figure out a way to have all of it together. So there were some cuts that I had to make there, but through all the trial and error that I got with this single piece, I really like how it came out, and I think it turned out really, really cool. And, like, now with the rest of the character, like, you could see, like, some clay representing, like, the ammo clicks on the side. I can move this arm. You can see, like, another one up here. The straps do continue on all the way around the back, and some detailing on the jacket. Jacket's a little bit more detailing on the back here with, like, some of these, like, belt buckles, buckles here. There was some more detailing on the vest, but because of the jackets, and I face this problem a lot, because of the jackets, we can't really see it that much, but I did include, like, the dog tags and the straps of, like, his vest. There is some detailing on the jacket, like, you can see, like, some of the pockets and the zippers, a little bit of, like, the belts that go around the jacket, and, like, this folded lapel that I had to super glue on here. I was hoping not to, but since the paint that I used for this made it a bit more flimsy, I had to make some cuts and apply it on there. I did keep, like, the top part of the jacket off. I usually cut this off, but with Barrett's jacket, I decided to keep it on, and just fold it a little bit so that way it matches up. With the head, I had a spare, like, Luther decal that I repainted everything except for the eyes and the mouth. The eyes I just kept intact because I used them as sort of like an idea of where to paint on the sunglasses, because I really feel like the sunglasses are another thing with Barrett's. They make them look cool. You could kind of see, like, the two scars on his right eye. I also painted on, like, his beard on his beard, which wasn't quite as difficult, but it was a slow process to get right, and draw it on. And then once that was out of the way, then I moved on to the hair, and the hair, as you can see, like it's like the shorts, like standing up and kind of hairpiece. I'm not sure how to describe this, but it's an iconic Lego hairpiece. The only other alternative that I would have used would be like the Zane from the rebooted Lego Ninjago sets, which I'm not a huge fan of. I kind of like the old one better. But with this design, I felt that like with the hairpiece that I had, this would be a pretty cool idea. I just sanded off the sides a little bit, and kept it up to sort of match up with the rest of the character to see sort of like that kind of buzz cut Barrett has, but overall represent like the general idea for Barrett. Alright, so from all of these characters, this was definitely a challenge to do, but once I was able to figure out like the obstacles that this one had, I really love how this came out. And this was a very interesting minifigure to do, but I really love it in the end. Next up on our list is Erik. Alright, so this character, I think one of the toughest things was applying on the fabrics and sculpting out her hair. So when doing this character, was a little bit interesting to do. For starters, there's a little articulation in the legs, but not a lot. Mostly because the fabric like solidified due to the paint, which I guess I should have expected that, but that's okay. Like I wanted to go ahead with like this design. Like throughout the game, she is wearing the dress, and I almost thought about like maybe doing like some kind of a piece like that, but you do see her boots, so I then thought that nah, we'll just stick just doing regular minifigure legs and just cutting out the fabric all the way around and gluing it onto the waist, so that way it still matches up with the overall character design. If you lift up her arms, you can see like I did glue on like little bits of fabric on the bottom of the jacket to represent sort of like those straps, those loose straps on at the bottom. I glued on like the lapels on the front of the jacket. Like I did the same thing with Lady from Devil May Cry. Alright, which I really like how that turned out. The arms were actually a little interesting to do. Like I had these regular like t-shirt arms that I had for a long time, and I always kept them like in storage because I thought that like, okay, one of these days I'm gonna use them. And then finally I decided to use it for this minifigure, so I repainted the sleeves into the crimson, and then like went back and did like the outlining like black, and added in like these gold buckles on both of them, so that way they're not exactly like lined up all the way, but if you look at them, they are roughly close. So that was a good addition that I made. I really like it. I like it that way it's all even up very nicely. There was originally supposed to be like more detailing onto the jackets, but I realized that like because of the size of it, all of it wouldn't be able to be seen onto the character. So that was another cut that I had to do. There was a lot more detailing on the decal underneath. Like I drew on her full like outfit design, including on like these darker outlines, and then little bits of detailing on there. Like you could kind of see her necklace, this little knot down here. But because of the jacket, and since it's super glued on, all that detailing, and I probably just did for nothing. But I still like to add it in sort of for the extra mile. Her head. I'm trying to remember where I did like this face decal before, because I know I used it before, but I can't remember like which minifigure that I used for. But this one was something I had in storage, and I recolored the eyes, to match up with her green, then glue that onto the face, and then like with her hair, I first sculpted out the top and then the bottom, then added in like these first like these long parts of the hair that I kind of wrapped up a little bit, then added in like this top part on the back. I added in the bow first, and then like her little bow, and added in on the back, and then with the same thing that I did for Weiss in in Volume 7, I took some clay, wrapped it up all the way around together to form like her braid, and glued it onto the back, and I think it matches up very well with Eric's like hairstyle in the game. And then finally looking at her staff. I'm trying to remember which character that I used something like this before. I think it was my White Canary from the Arrow showcase. But it's been a long time that I don't fully remember it. But with the staff design, I took like these classic, launching bricks, and then attached these onto this lightsaber handle. I then went back with some clay and filled in like the gaps, and then even filled in like the holes at the bottom of each end. Filled those up, and then gave it a nice coat of silver paint, and included in like the materia. I don't remember if this is actually where the materia is supposed to be, but these were like good spots that I added in like the magic materia, and then like the pink special materia. I forgot what the pink one and what the pink ones do, but it is like adding on more to that sort of like special variety materia that you can acquire throughout the game. I did do like two different pinks on like the outlining over here. Like you kind of see the outlining, and it continues around to the back, and continues on all the way right back to the front. Her boots are brown. These were originally black, but then when I double checked, it's just like, oh no, they're actually brown. So with with my own dark brown paint, I painted those on. Same thing with the hair. I made my own like dark brown color to paint up for her hairstyle. And overall, it just turned out to be a pretty cool build. I think the jackets, like the general jacket design, might have come out a little bit too long. Detailing wise, there wasn't enough room to include in like some of those extra bits. But I might have accidentally made this a bit too long than I was fully intending to. But overall, it does work pretty well. Like I can move the arms, I can move the arms. I wish I could move the legs more, but because of the fabric, that's not an option. And overall, of designing this character was a fun little build to do, and I think overall captures the idea of Aerith in LEGO format. And last on our list, and certainly not least, is of course the one-winged angel himself, Sephiroth. So doing this character was definitely a challenge. Not as big as Barrett, but definitely had some obstacles for me to go through. So when first finding some photo references for Sephiroth, I found a lot of like cosplay designs as well as like some character photos, but a lot of them were very different from Final Fantasy VII Remake. So after I finally managed to find good references for that particular design, I was able to have something to work off to making this character. So first up, on painting like his outfit, I actually printed off a muscular torso decal, like the same kind of torso decal that I used for Greek Kratos in God of War. I recolored it, and then printed it off and glued it on here, because definitely those designs definitely showed of having like the jacket open and like the straps underneath. So I painted on the straps as well as like some other details here and there. The trench coat, I actually didn't have to cut too much of it off, just mostly at the top and a little bit on the sides, so that way it was more even, and you could see like underneath like the torso printing. The length is roughly close to about as it's supposed to be. And then also came in another challenge was sculpting on the shoulder pads. So kind of a trial and error of how those came out. So I first did them in layers. I first did one pad on like the regular arms on these regular like black arms, and then like after attaching them back on, I then sculpted out the rest of the shoulders. And the difficult thing was of sculpting them on and making sure that like they wouldn't actually stick onto the bottom shoulders, because since this is new clay, they're more likely to fuse together. So that was a challenge to making sure that there was enough of a gap to where I could move the arms and nothing would be threatened to rip off. It was kind of a pain to do, but once I managed to get it right, the rest of it was pretty straightforward. with the waist, with like the waist down here, like I glued on like this single thread of fabric to represent like the sort of belts that he has down here. I did some cardboard of like his little symbol. The symbol would have come out a little bit more, but since it was tiny, I had a limited amount of room to work with. I did some more detailing on like the sides. Like you can kind of see like like the gray marker detailing that I did on here, and then like on the top of the jacket, same thing towards the back. There was more detailing on the back, but it was all covered up with the silver hair, and with the wing. The wing actually was something that, and I was jumping back and forth between two different designs. I thought about like maybe I could sculpt the wing or use like this extra angel wing I had, but the angel wing, it was more folded and closed, so it didn't like spread out, like the way it does on the game. So I settled for cutting out my own wing, painting it black, and then going back and doing like the detailing of all the feathers. This was probably inaccurate, but detailing wings is very hard. It is very hard to do, especially those individual feathers. So that was a bit of a pain. With the rest of the hair, was pretty straightforward. If I didn't sculpt out the hair, I probably would have used like one of those classic like slit back long hair pieces. I think I showed it's that kind of hairstyle when I did Sally from Nightmare Before Christmas. But that was like the idea that I wanted to use for a character like Sephiroth, and just add in like the front, the front long parts of the hair. Overall, this turned out like a good like sculpting design for the hair, and I really like it how it came out. And then with the katana, I forged like my own long katana. It's not the prettiest, but it does pull off like his long sword. The sword handle was actually something that I was saving for quite some time, and I finally decided that like we're gonna sculpt out, we're going to make his sword. Like what I did was I took some cardboard, glued two pieces together, wrapped it around masking tape, and then I trimmed off some bits of it because I realized that the katana was a bit too thick. I didn't like that. So I tried to trim it off and trim it up as best I could. The only other alternative that I probably would have done would be like taking a couple of katana blades and like chopping them up and see if I could like merge them together. But I don't know how that would have looked. I think it would have actually looked worse than the current katana now. But it does still pull off like Sephiroth's long sword. The face decal, like the general face was like the same one that I used for Riku, but I made some modifications for, like I made the eyes angrier. I changed up the color to match up with the same for Cloud, to match up with like that Mako energy. He does have with his eyes. If you see in the game, he does have more like cat eyes. I didn't want to do that for this figure because I think that would have looked too weird for the figure. And as I've seen with like Clone Wars, like the Clone Wars minifigures, doing animated eyes like that is very bizarre for a minifigure. So I think it looks better. Of just like the regular design of Lego eyes, just swapped out with a different color. And overall, even though this wasn't as tough as Barrett's, Sephiroth definitely did provide a challenge for me to figure out of how to make this character. And just with combining of clay, fabric, and like my own custom elements with the wing and the sword, I really like of how this turned out. And this definitely pulls off of Sephiroth as Lego. And that's gonna do it for this episode of LEGO Arts. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. So overall with this showcase, I think this has to be one of my favorites that I've done thus far, because this was definitely a challenge of making each of these characters. It wasn't quite as challenging as like Ruby Volume 7, because that showcase had a lot more detailing incorporated into it. But this one definitely had me like figure out, like, think outside the box with each of these characters, because each of them have like their own special elements, like their own sculpting, their own detailing, and especially with some of the crazier stuff that I had to do, like sculpting out the shoulder armor, the hair designs, and especially Barrett's minigun. This is gonna remain as the craziest thing that I've done for a minifigure. Because I don't know if I'll ever be able to attempt something like this again. I hope to in the future, because this was definitely a challenge. And overall, when looking at these characters, I really love of how each of them came out, and this was very fun to do. But if you're wondering, what about some of the other characters? Like, what about Red 13 or Avalanche, the Turks, some of the villains? Honestly, I'm not too motivated to do those characters. Like, I almost thought about maybe doing Red, because he did show up more in the game, but it was more towards the end. And by then, I had already put together of who I wanted to make. And at the time, like, I wanted to get those characters out of the way and just focus on them, so I can get ready for other projects. If he returns in Final Fantasy VII Part 2, or if you guys actually want to see a character like that, maybe I'll do him again in the future, and maybe Zack as well. But until then, I think Final Fantasy will be put to a close. But definitely when the second game comes out, I really would I'd be more than happy to do more characters like these, because this was definitely fun. Only a fun attempt to make these characters, and I really love how they all turn out. So now that these things are done, I can now begin on figuring out, of how I'm gonna do Avatar: The Last Airbender. I have figured out like what characters I wanted to make, but now I need to focus on how I'm going to make said characters. I won't reveal of who all I'm making, but I am planning on doing it in two waves. We're gonna have one wave which is gonna focus on like some of the main characters, and then the second we'll be focusing on like some additional characters I decided to do. So I don't know when that showcase is gonna be. Showcase is coming out, but be sure to keep your eyes and ears peeled out for that. But anyways, if you guys want to check out like some of the other showcases I've done, like Ruby, Kingdom Hearts, Devil May Cry, Detroit Become Human, and all those other showcases, you can check them out in my LEGO Arts playlist. If you guys want to see like my Let's Plays on Final Fantasy VII, I'll include a link to the playlist in the description below, so you can check those out. But overall, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you all again in the next episode. Bye bye.